Greetings, fellow travelers, and welcome to the Way of the Showman, where we view the world through the lens of showmanship. I am Captain Frodo, and I will be your host and your guide along the way. And today, I have decided to turn that lens towards the always evolving and changing relationship between myself and my daughter. This is something that comes up a lot for me and Jay when we're talking, maybe not so much when we're talking on the podcast, but this, the change that comes into our lives when you become a father, both of us being fathers, when you become a parent, it changes your relationship to not just to another person that you brought into being, but also to your partner and to yourself. I'm going to speak mainly from my own just limited point of view with my own flaws and all that, and try to just tell the story of some of the stuff that has happened now, and maybe this will be useful or of interest to anyone out there who already have children and who are touring performers, because that's just part of the crux. Is when you are young, touring around is absolutely awesome. I loved it, and I still do. And then your situation changed when you're brought into a deep, possibly one of the deepest relationships that you can have with somebody that you are completely responsible for. You become a father or a parent, and then as the time goes on, in the beginning it's easy. It's like the child is being on tour with a baby is it's much easier than as they grow older. And at some point they start having their own needs and desires, and they want to have their own friends, and school age comes, and that invariably makes you need to make some decisions on what's important. And for us in our little family, it's been important that my daughter has stability, and as she has grown older, that she could get her own network of friends, and that we would have stability by letting her grow up and be in one spot, which is how we ended up in Vegas. So that's these ongoing needs of the child continually change. And as the kids grow up, then your relationship also change, because that child is actually changing continuously. Much like, of course, we are the same person. I am the person who begged my parents to get a Hoth vampire, like a Star Wars figurine of the big white Yeti-looking thing that catches Luke in The Empire Strikes Back. I begged and managed eventually to get that thing, and I'm still that person, but I am also a completely different person. And my daughter is going through some of those changes now, not in relation to Star Wars, unfortunately, not through a lack of trying on my behalf, but be that as it may. It's now 12 years since I became a dad, and to have a 12-year-old, the different things are starting to happen. And one of the things that happens that is just in embryo now, it's going to come in full bloom, no doubt about it. But the thing that is happening is that the person who she is becoming is separating away from me, and in so many ways that is what I hope for. It's what's going to happen. It's inevitable, and it's why I have tried to pass on what limited knowledge I have and my views and opinions on the world to help guide her. But also, that's the pleasure of having a child, is also that you can show them the world as you see it. They might not care for it, but I'm very lucky that many of the books that I love, that she also really, really love. And that's one of the things that has remained solid for these 12 years. I read aloud to her every night, for anything from, depending on how long the bedtime ritual before it, anything from 15 minutes to an hour and 15. So, big part of raising a kid, I think, is to talk and to tell stories. As Einstein said, if you want your children to become smart, then read them stories. And if you want them to become geniuses, read them even more stories. So if that is true, then she's going to do all right. But anyway, then along the way, like, you want them to separate and you want them to become independent. It's the life is in many ways a self-creation. In the beginning, things are coming in and you're filling yourself up with all this sort of stuff, and then you have to create yourself. You have to, become a person, and that is the goal. But and as much as I know that there's going to be a separation where she goes one way and I go another one, and that it's going to be a blurry sort of line. But one day when I finish reading a book or finish reading a chapter or whatever, she goes off with her friends the next day, and then the next day then she's doing something else, and then she wants to watch a movie, or then she wants to read a little bit for herself, and one day will be the last day that I read for her. That's just the way that nature intends for things to be, and you don't know when that is. But recently it felt like it was coming a whole lot closer for me, just over these last few months, over this European summer. And for as much as I know that separation is going to happen, much like with the other inevitabilities of life, taxes and death, when someone I love dies, as much as I knew it, and I know that it's going to happen to everyone, that does not make it a nice experience to go through. And I've been going through some of this just recently. And one of the first, it wasn't the first sign, but it certainly was like the moments in your life when things become clearer, and you sort of go, oh, there you go. And when I was in Las Vegas earlier, working for Mad Apple, the circus show at New York, then my family came. I was there for 2 months, and they came and were there for 1 month in the middle, because we have a thing with my family to try to limit the amount of time that I'm away. Then I went over and I was there for just over 2 weeks, and then they were there for a month, and I was there for about 2 weeks afterwards. So then we just have these 2.5 weeks in each end, roughly, of separation. We try to not be away from each other for more than 3 weeks, because it's just not nice, or we don't like it, being away for long periods. So they'd been up there, and right towards the end, then my daughter said something that kind of made me all sit up and pay attention. So I've known that it was coming, but it doesn't take away the feelings. So then after she said that, which I do, and I have done it on this podcast before. I process events in my daughter and my own relationship, how that evolves. I process it often by writing. I write a lot, as you know, on this podcast. I write a lot and I think a lot, and as brighter people than me have said, the first draft of a story, or the first draft of anything that you write to see what it is that you think about this thing, or you write to see what happens when this character meets said obstacle. And I wrote this thing down, and I titled it "Going Solo," and it starts with the opening line of what it was that she said. Going solo. Today you said you miss your friends more than me. Today you said you miss your friends more than me. The time where it was us three against the world, you, Mama, and me, draws to a close. We moved to Norway for you to be the protagonist in our ongoing story. You were a reluctant hero, took your time, but now it's happening. That day you spoke a new truth, not because there were ever any lies in your fire, but because today your heart sang a different song. Not because there ever were any lies in your fire, but because today your heart sang a different song. Mama and I will still be your backup singers, but you're stepping into the soloist spotlight. You're the new music. We're the oldies, still clinging on for as long as you'll have us. And when you move on, gently or violently letting us go, when you move on, gently or violently letting us go, know that we're still going to be there. Even when you're far away, humming the backup melodies, humming the backup harmonies, just in case you ever get lonely in the solo spot, or you ever want to do one more concert to feel again the love and music of the original trio, you, Mama, and me. Yeah, so there you go. Got a little bit about the band and everything there, which we did actually sing some songs together and all of that. But yeah, she misses her friends more than me. Her relationships outside of the family, with her friends and with the people from school and in the improv class that she's just started and gotten very enthusiastic about. All of these things are now what is in the forefront. This is foregrounded, and my wife and I and that we're being backgrounded a little bit. What really sets her soul on fire is to be with her friends. They're still very childlike, and they're still very having a lot of fun and making stuff and all that, but the computer screens and the digital world is screaming at her, as it is at everyone, and they're, things are changing. And the kind of key thing is that she's moving away, and she's separating from us. And then during the summer now, I was in Kristiansand being an actor, being a circus show, doing some magic as well, of course, or not of course, but anyway, I was doing that. And when then my wife and my daughter went on a holiday to Greece and spent 3 weeks in the sun, which was good because the Norwegian summer was more rainy than usually, and so it was good to when the summer just is a few months of the year where the skiing is bad, as we say. Then if half of that is raining, then you're really missing out, especially if you're like my wife, somebody who grew up in Australia and is used to a whole different kind of climate and a whole different relationship to the weather. And so anyway, they went on a holiday, and when they got back, I was really trying to connect, to get my daughter off the phone and get her into the world, and really trying all sorts of things, and to like what we could do together. But I could really also feel that there was there wasn't that enthusiasm anymore, that all parents invariably at some point the kid is just not going to listen to you, or just not see you like they used to, as somebody who they just are dying to tell you about what happened when they did this, or that I played this game and then this happened, or I said this, or so. So when that then happens, then and I was trying to connect, find those bits where we actually connected, and they were only going to be back with me in the caravan for It was just over a week or something before they were going to go to Finland to meet some friends of ours from Vegas who were going back to Finland with their little daughter and everything, and my family was going to go on a road trip and see them. So it was just this little week, and I just had this sort of feeling that no matter what it was that I tried to present, of playing games or going out or going for walks or going to whatever it was, it just didn't quite sort of connect. That I just couldn't, that there wasn't any, and that I was becoming old hat, or like I just said in the thing there, that we're becoming the oldies, and that she is the new music that I'm separating out. So when they left, I got quite sad or so, and on one of my walks, there's some spectacular walks up into the forest there that I do, long walks in, and there's beautiful lakes and stuff, and I sat by the lake there one morning on an early morning walk, and the sun was just sort of coming up over the forest, and I just felt quite sad about this. It's basically like some sort of breakup or whatever it felt like was happening. And don't worry, it doesn't go. This thing has a sort of happy ending or whatever. So don't. It's not all bad here, and it's what's supposed to happen, and it's what I really, really hope is going to happen. That she wants to stand on her own legs and all that. But of course, it's worrying when you see these things that by the time your child is 18, you will have spent 90% of the amount of time that you will spend with them. That's already done then. And I can't remember what these figures are, if it's even real, but thinking from myself, it's like I moved away as soon as I could. Not because I wanted to get away from my parents, but because there were so many things that I wanted to do that were not based around my hometown or my parents, or so they just weren't involved. So I sat there in the forest, and I didn't know that a poem was coming, but I was just sitting looking at the lake, and then I started thinking, and then I started writing. So I wrote something more, and this piece is called "You're on Your Way." You're on your way. We walked together for 12 years. The things we shared were the deepest, the ones you so easily forget, which takes a lifetime to remember. We walked together for 12 years, and the things we shared were the deepest, the ones you so easily forget, which takes a lifetime to remember. Now you're leaving, and my repeated painful tries to find a way, a trail in your ever-expanding geography, where we can walk together alongside each other. No longer me leading the way, but a track where what I have, what I know, who I am, is invited into the you who's becoming. Now you're leaving, and my repeated painful tries to find a way, to find a trail in your ever-expanding geography where we can walk together alongside each other, no longer me leading the way, but a track where what I have, what I know, who I am, is invited into the you who's becoming. Where what I have, what I know, who I am, is invited into the you who's becoming. The books were like so many docks, where our two ships anchored up at night before bed. The books were like so many docks, where our two ships anchored up at night before bed, to share a story and finding room for the stories of ourselves, mostly yours. The books were like so many docks, where our two ships anchored up at night before bed, to share a story and finding room for the stories of ourselves, mostly yours, your daytime expeditions so full of life, so deeply engaging, wholeheartedly lived. Mine, so very much in my head, slow and detached. But with the coming of the real and the digital worlds, and the ever-emerging you, the books have been put on the shelves, not to be taken out again, lest I push. But with the coming of the real and digital worlds, and the ever-emerging you, the books have been put on the shelves, not to be taken out again, lest I push. I ask myself, when should I relent? How much of the urging is my own fears of her missing what gives me so much? And importantly, the last shared dock. That fading hour before sleep where I still have a place alongside you. The time comes nearer, and perhaps it's even past, where you sail away. The final book not even finished, your eyes on your own horizon. The books have been put on the shelves, not to be taken out again, lest I push. I ask myself, when should I relent? And how much of the urging is my own fears of her missing what gives me so much? How much of the urging is my own fears of her missing what gives me so much? And importantly, the last shared dock. That fading hour before sleep where I still have a place alongside you. And the time comes nearer, and perhaps it's even past, where you sail away. The final book not even finished, your eyes on the horizon. The time comes nearer, perhaps it's even past, where you sail away. The final book not even finished, your eyes on your own horizon, sailing away into your own adventure, leaving me to check my mailbox for postcards, and peering through my telescope with hope to glimpse your sails somewhere beyond my horizon, coming back to dock. Leaving me to check my mailbox for postcards, and peering through my telescope with hope to glimpse your sails somewhere beyond my horizon, coming back to dock, to share tiny, redacted snippets of your life. The dock will be longingly kept. The dock will be longingly kept ready, awaiting your return. So yeah, there you go, sailing away, following her own course. Exactly what you hope for, but nonetheless a little melancholic. So with all that said and read, it started before this really took form. So it's kind of interesting that the solution was not something that I came up with then after the summer when we came back. Because all the way along, whilst this is going on, and this is in the forefront of my mind, and I'm realizing that she's pulling away, the preparations for the building of a brand new dock, a dock that could keep us together for a long time, a repetition of my own biography had begun. It kind of first was brought to my attention by my sister. I think maybe I mentioned this on the podcast, but I'll mention it here for the completion of it, where my sister said, the other day when she drove Saskia home from somewhere, my daughter drove her home, and they said, I had a great conversation with her in the car, and she said that she wanted to do stuff on stage. I was like, what? That's interesting. Anyway, I brought it up with my daughter later, and And I said, oh, what is it that you want to do? And she was like, oh, what? And I tried to help her suggest what she could do or whatever. And I suggested all kinds of stuff that, that she's already kind of doing, or looking for things that she could do in a show, or what she could present, or singing, or these things that she does. But then she, at the end of it, going, I kind of want to do what you do, like the magic and things. And that was like this first sort of seed, and I was like, oh, okay, that's a good. And then we didn't do anything there and then, because life is busy, as you know, and there's lots of stuff going on, and you never got enough time to do everything. So I really started thinking about it, and I started to make the preparations for giving her a sort of broad spectrum introduction and fitting her into the show, and to give her lots of different things, lots of different acts that she could partake in, and one of the things is that she is got the same bendy shoulders that I have. So I thought, all right, she has actually done that one time before in a sort of, when I was working with Circus Nemo. Emily Wise of the Juggling Tango with Men of Van Dyke and Emily, they do an act, and she did, during that 5-month tour on the road with Circus Nemo, she did dancing and performance, did a little sort of class for the kids. There was maybe 4 or 5 kids or something in the camp at that time. Or was there even more? I can't remember now. Oh no, there was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe there was 5 kids. Anyway, beside the point. She did a little contortion thing there, and that was just like, I knew that she could do it, and she so I thought that she's got to do that. There's something very special about a child coming out and doing something which is wholly herself. It's a demonstration of some crazy stuff that you can do, and she does love to be silly, and I do in my performance too. So that was going to be in. But then I had this idea as I was looking through the website of Pagani. Pagani is a magic shop in Denmark, best in Scandinavia, I'd say. And I saw there an illusion, a magic illusion, where it's like a box where you can put big sort of tubes through it, a box that you put someone in, and then you can put 3 large tubes. I think it's called a mini cube illusion, that thing, and you put the 3 tubes through, and then the middle of it can push out, and you can put 3 swords through. So it's basically like there's no one in there. That's the effect of it, like the person has disappeared, or I don't know exactly what the magic trick implies that has happened in there, but to me, what it seemed like was like there was that somebody in there is completely twisted and bent, and to be able to fit around all these incredibly large objects, so there's almost no breathing space inside there. So I thought, well, that inside that box there lies a contortionist. So I thought, I'm going to buy that thing from Pagani, and through a series of fortuitous things where I had some money outstanding with him from a gig I did with the Illusions. Actually, there was the Illusions festival in Horsens, which is happening again now soon in October, I think. So get tickets for that if you're in Denmark. Absolutely brilliant. And that's where I met Nick the Fat, and where I met Mario the Maker, magicians, who both have appeared on this podcast. And Nick will be coming out with 2 more episodes now in November. But and also Charlie Caper, my good dear friend Charlie Caper, was also there, and Morten with 2 N's, who I hope to get on the podcast also. So that was an important event, the Illusions in Horsens. That actually set me on track to then buy this illusion. It's the first magic illusion, large kind of box style magic that I've bought. So I thought, that's what I'm going to do. Saskia's going to do her contortion with her arms first, and then present her as a contortionist, and then put her into the box and say this is the ultimate challenge for her and everything. So that was one thing, and then we worked on some magic tricks, and we worked on some stuff, and we had worked on that before the summer. So while like and the ideas for some of these things I had started working on before we went to Vegas. Because I remember telling Nick about it when I was in Vegas, and I had actually gotten the illusion because of my good friend Lasse Nørraga, or Bonbon the Clown. He was driving to Denmark to pick up a new car, a van, and it turns out it was on the way to, which drove past Horsens, where Pagani had his magic shop. So Pagani wrapped the illusion in plastic and stashed it behind the store, and luckily nobody stole it in the meantime, and Lasse picked it up, shoved it into his van, and the illusion was huge, so luckily he did have a van, and then he took it back to Norway, and it stood in Kristiansand for ages. And then I eventually got it home and whatever. But we didn't start practicing, and so all this sort of stuff was going on during this time. So while the separation of her was going, the seeds had been planted, and we had done the first kind of preparations and presentations and so. But as it always is when you first start doing things, you just don't know whether it's going to amount to anything. And I remember from when I was a kid performing with my dad, which weirdly sort of is at about the same age that my daughter. I just found an old diary from 1987, and in there I could already see in some of the little diary entries references to me and my dad and doing magic tricks. And I found one going like, oh, today, it was very short because I was young, whatever, 10, 11, and I found like, today Dad and I built a magic trick that can produce me, a magic box that can produce me. And Dad still has that illusion somewhere. And when he says we did, I guess Dad did it and I was present and looked at and felt like I was part of it. But I guess that's what happens in these first sessions, where you feel like you're a part of it, but it's driven by me. Because when I ask my daughter what she wants to do or so, she doesn't actually know. Because you don't have a fully formed idea. Just, I remember that as well. Like, I've joked about that I was like wanting to be on stage, and then when I got there standing in front of an audience and going like, this is great, and then going, oh, I really should have something to do now that I'm here. Of course, it wasn't quite that way around, but sometimes that's sort of what it feels like. You awaken to what it is that you want to show or whatever. So anyway, so all of this was being planned, and just 2 weeks after I got back from Kristiansand, we were going to do our first gig. So it was all in the works, and what I'm going to, the good news, the good ending of this is that she just loves doing shows. She loves it, and some people, when you get onto the stage, you find it challenging, and the scrutiny of the audience, and that makes you kind of nervous and self-conscious, so that you perform, let's say, 40%, 30% less good than in rehearsal, because you're just shocked by the immediacy of the situation and whatever. But some people do turn it up, that 30-40%, because the audience's attention somehow pulls you into the moment and makes everything count. And the glorious thing was to find out when we did this gig in Vangen, a festival here in my hometown, that's my daughter just slammed it. She just stepped up, and because during that first show, her first show with me, with the Captain Frodo's Magic Circus, Captain Frodo's Family Stunts, actually, I think it was called there. And as we went on, it started to rain, like torrentially, like in ways that it doesn't normally rain here. Like, it rains all the time, but a little bit all the time. But there, it was coming down, and I was like, we were in the forest, and mud was flying upwards, and I'd put a huge tarp on the ground because it was muddy on the ground, and it filled up to become like a swimming pool towards the end. And before, just as we were starting, there was like two kids just standing in this like a 1 by 1 meter pool of water that had formed, and people had their rain gear on, so there were still lots of people. They were all sitting there, and The kids were just stomping around and throwing popcorn into it and floating around like little boats on the muddy lake. So it was demented how much it rained. But in that, when we did all this sort of stuff, and my wife had trained the dog, and the dog doesn't like rain at the best of times, so he went, he didn't want to do much tricks, but he actually ended up doing pretty much everything, but it was not a smooth event. He was not impressed. But then, when my daughter took to the stage, she just took off a little top jacket or whatever that she had so that she could do the contortions and you could see it, and the show just came alive. She stepped in and did the talking and that we had talked about and just nailed it. So that was totally awesome. So with that, this family tradition of the Santini family, where the great Santini passed on his enthusiasm for performing and magic to me, and now my daughter at about the same age had stepped into the spotlight. So as much as me and my wife are the backup singers humming the backup harmonies, in case my daughter would ever get lonely in the solo spot, or she wants to come back to do one more concert to feel again the love and the music of the original trio, you, Mama, and me. As much as that just has happened, it's like we've gotten a second wind. It's like we got the band back together again, but we expanded. We're not just doing music anymore. She is yet again becoming in like the sort of master-apprentice or the father-daughter relationship, because she genuinely wants to be on stage, and she thinks the things that I come up with are funny, and I come up with the broad outlines, and then she shapes it and comes up with other little ideas herself. So it's like we're back on track for another run. And now I can see the pleasure of what my dad must have felt when you get to share something with your child as they're growing up. So as much as we quarreled and disagreed on what was funny or what was going to be in the show, or that we argued about, who was the magician and who was the assistant, and me wanting to become more equal as I got up, all that, there's things are not going to be easy. But we have found a new doc that I didn't see coming, even though I had already started to build it. I just couldn't quite sort of, so it all sort of came together in that pouring rain. Then we did a second show that day, and it was much better. The weekend after, my wife had gone to Australia, and me and my daughter did one more gig at a little festival an hour's away from where we are. And then the weekend after that again, we went to the circus village, Cirkuslandsbyen, in Sverre Våge's wonderful new circus festival in a circus tents in a park in Oslo. And we went there, and Saskia and I, we did 4 shows, 2 shows on the Saturday and 2 shows on the Sunday, and that really that gets you into it, because the details that you can do when you perform the first show and then you talk about it again afterwards, and then tune it a little bit and come up with more ideas, another little gag, and how about you wait and turn the music on here, because she was organizing the music and she was doing magic and she was doing contortion and speaking in a microphone and doing all that. So it was like full spectrum. Getting ready for the the performance of every of her life. So we're back on track, and Captain Frodo's Magic Circus has been expanded. It's the incredible Rubber Girl Saskia B and yours truly. So all very good in my little town, but it's just pushed the inevitable away. It's she is still on her own way. She is still going solo, but the time is not yet now. It's not going to be just now, and we have another ongoing new doc where she wants to come back to. So let's see how it all goes. Next gig is on Wednesday. If you do find these episodes and the content that I put out interesting, then please consider subscribing to the podcast so it comes downloaded into your podcast app whenever I release a new episode. And to know what's coming up, etc., you can also click follow on The Way of the Showman at Instagram. Anyway, it has been a pleasure talking to you. And until next time, take care of yourself and those you love. And I hope to see you along the way.